Hey guys, welcome to the new tutorial video on how to create your own game in Unreal Engine. Sorry I haven't posted anything in the last few days. I was trying to figure out the best way we can start this new chapter. So in this video we're going to start with animations, and I'm going to show you how we can create animations from scratch in Unreal Engine, how we can edit the existing animations, and then I'm just going to quickly explain how the root works for those of you that don't know. And as a bonus we can add sprinting animation to our player character because we already have a function for it. So to create new animation we need character with bones so we can transform them, and we could be using one of these, the NPCs or the trader, but it's better if we create one from scratch. We just need a mannequin, and easiest way to get it is just search for idle and we'll drag out the idle, which is the idle animation, but we just need a character. Now to create animation, we will go up here, which is a sequencer, and add level sequence. In third person I'm going to create a new folder, which will be sequence, and here I'm going to create this one, which is testing sequence, and save it. That will open the sequence. Select this character and then add actor to sequencer, and here on top, if you have it selected, you should have it. If not, just search for it here. So idle, and after a short while that will create the control rig for us that we can control, and it's not the actual idle animation, it's just clean rig that doesn't do anything. And here on the bottom you do have play button, which plays the animation that you create, and you do have a frame rate. So I want to change this to only 60 because this was quite long on 150. And now you will have 60 frame animation. You can also change frames to seconds. So here, if you click on this, show time as seconds, you can create an animation that will last exactly the time that you want. But I'm going to change it back to frames. And now to actually animate this character, you have all these bones that you can edit. And all we have to do is similar as when you do animations in a UMG widget. First you need to key in. So let's say I want to select this bone in an arm. I will key that value here. So add a new key on the beginning on 0. And then let's say on 30 I want to move that arm up here by rotate it, and then add another key. Now what this does is, if you play this animation, it will lift the arm, and very smoothly. So from one point to the other. If you want to be adding keys automatically, you don't want to be doing it all the time, you got this selection here which creates a key when you change a property. So you can tick it in, but it always needs a first key. So you would always still have to do key here and add key. But what we can do is select all of this, go all the way on top, uncheck these three, and just add keys, which will add all of the keys that we need on the first one. And then if you just need to edit something, like for example I want to move the body forward, so body control, and I'll move it on frame 30 to lean forward like that, and then it will create the key automatically for you. And then let's say on this one I want to move it back, and again once I stop it will create the key, and now this character will move forward and move back. And this is basically how you can create any sort of movement. You can create your animation that will swing a sword or anything else. Running animations are a little bit harder because you have to actually take some time with it and do this foot eye case, which is you need to select one of these squares, and that is foot right IK rig. So foot right IK, and then you can just move your foot as well, but you would move it to this point. I just changed it on the first one. So you would move it to some point and then move it down again. So it's a little bit more difficult with the running animations. But for general animations like combat or anything else we need, best practice is probably to film yourself and then watch that video how you actually move if you were to swing a sword or use a hammer or anything like that, and then you would animate it depending on that video. So this is the basic animation, but also what can happen is, let's say I do have a key here. Can I delete it? Delete the key. What's this one? I'll do it for shoulder or for head. I'll show you on the head. So head, can I move it? Yeah. So I'll remove this key. And then if you just added key here, it would have no point to go from, and it would just suddenly... Did I not change it? I didn't change it. So on this one, I'll change it like up here and then key it in. So it doesn't have a starting point. So suddenly, okay, it does have a... Never mind. I wanted to show you that sometimes it doesn't go smoothly, and when you reach that point, it just jumps up straight away. And that is because you do have these curves. So if you select it, it will open the curve, and here you can see how smoothly it moves. So it goes like that all the way to the second key. You can add key here as well, and then you can edit that curve that it will go up and down. So now my head is bobbing like that. So you can also edit the curves. But if we're editing animations, you would eventually have multiple keys as well. But what you can do is also delete keys, or what can happen is that animation will jump from one point to the other, and that is because your key will be created. I just removed it. So your key would be, for example, like this, and then on the end of animation it will go like this. I'm not sure why it is moving. Yeah, and then it will just jump up straight away. So that's when you basically want to move the key or change the curve, so it would go in a different way. Here, if you right click, you can do different type of curves. So you can have linear, you can have auto, which will automatically change it for you. And there is also, what is the smart auto, linear, constant, break, and they're all a little bit different. So that's how you edit the curve. And one more thing to keep in mind is that this curve, for example, is blue. So that means here you got a blue arrow as well. So that means it's editing the Z value. So this is my curve currently, but you can also do the green value. So that would be location Y, and if I change it, it goes up or down. And also X is the red, obviously. So you can either see each specific curve, or if you select head, you can see all of the curves together that you have currently on head, and you can edit them. Yeah, and this is how we basically create it one after the other. You can make a running animation or whatever. And then once you finish with the animation, one more thing to keep in mind is actually you want to have, for looping animations, so for something like running, you want to start at the same point that you ended. So if your head, for example, was down here, like right on the shoulders, and then suddenly it's up, when the animation ends and starts looping, it will just be jumping again. And to make sure your points are on the same point, you can just again edit the curve, and then, for example, this one, at the moment they are on the same point, but if it was something like this, you can just make sure that these values are the same. You got the values that you can type in as well, and then edit it. So this one I'll leave at 0, and this one will be 0, or this one can be 5, and this one can be 5, and it will always end at the same point. And then once you have done with animation, you can export it. And the way you're going to export it is go all the way up, right click on this idle, bake to control, sorry, not bake to control, like bake animation sequence, and then you can save it. So let's say in third person, I'll create a new folder which will be animation, and then I'll select it and do test animation. export to animation sequence. And you have created a new animation. So now if I go to third person, animations, test animation, this is what it looks like. Weird as hell, but you know, it's the animation that you created. And it's moving around. So you can do whatever you like in the engine as long as you got a little bit of time. And obviously this is useful. We will be using it, as I said, for like small animations, maybe like mining minerals and we can just move hammer back and forward, or small animations like opening doors where you only need to extend your arm, or looting something just with like a small pickup with your hand. But then when we move on to combat, we will actually need to have some base animations, because editing or creating all of them would be pain in the ass. But not all of the animations assets are actually nice. Most of them you want to speed up or you want to change. And to change the animation, we can just remove this part. We'll again add this actor. So actor to sequence, add idle, and then here we'll remove the control rig. On the animation you would do plus, and you would select the animation you want to edit. There is not many animations by default in Unreal, so I can do something like run, run. Then I'll move this, so it just contains the animation, or you can move this part. Just make sure it starts at 0 and ends with this. And then this is a looping animation, obviously, that goes over and over. And if you now right click on this idle, and then we can bake to control rig, and we will select this sear mannequin body. We'll create, and it will create all the keys contained in this animation, and now we can edit them. So this is a little bit more difficult, because as you can see, you got one key after the other. So if you change one key, you also have to change all of them. So let's say I wanted to move my arm slightly. So I do have a shield, and so I have a shield on my back, and it's clipping because my arm is going too back. So let's say here I want to just move this down so it wouldn't be clipping, and just move it somewhere here. But now I do have this automatic key created, so it changed it for me. But now what happens, it's only changed it for one of the keys. So here you can see it's jumping, and then it's jumping back. And this is what most people usually see, and then they give up on editing animations. But you can do this curve editor. And here, if you zoom in, you can see why it's jumping from one point to the other, because I have just edited one key and rest of them are the same. But what I can do is bring all of them. So let's just do, what is it, X. This one, location X. I can just select location X, and then for example, I could bring all of these keys down. I could remove this key right here, so it's a little bit smoother. I can move this up, and remove these ones, for example. And then if you play your animation, you wouldn't see it jumping as it was before, because when it reaches this curve, so this still jumps because it's quite steep, but then down here it's a bit smoother. And there is, at the moment, there is also all the rotations or locations that are playing in this one, and that is, one of them is the location Z. So also, as you can see, it's going down with the arms, so it's moving like that, then it's moving like this. And we could also just select all of these keys, remove them, and then your arm is not moving as much as it was before. And here it's going down again, so we could even move this whole thing up. And then again, we want to have a starting point where the ending point is, so at 0. And then suddenly your arm is just not going as mental. And you can do it on all of the locations, because you can see all of them are like this. or you can just delete all the keyframes. So let's say you want to hold the shield in your arm, so you don't want it to move. I would remove all these keys in the middle and I can create my own. But let's do these ones as well. And then I'm moving my arm. Am I on the upper arm? Yeah. Alright, okay, so it's also rotations and everything else. I can also remove these ones. And now you can see my arm is staying in place because it doesn't have any curves really to move. So I could be holding shield now and that arm stays in place, or I could add any keys that it will move slightly up and down. So you can edit anything you like, but it's always better to do it with the keys here, with the curves, than doing it actually here one by one. And yeah, and that's how you can edit the animation. And then just to export it is the same thing, that you can just right click here and bake it. And then the second part I wanted to explain is how the root works. So on the animations, let's say this one. I'm going to export it as a testing so you can see. So right click on the idle, bake animation sequence. Again, go to animations, and this will be run test export animation sequence. And then this run test by default doesn't have enable root motion. So now if I were to go to my player, let's actually create a montage from it so we can play it in the player. So from this run test, I'm going to right click, create an montage, and this will be run test montage. I don't have to change the name. Go to your player, and then in the event graph down here, I'm going to do keyboard event H, because I don't have anything on H, and then we'll just play montage. And montage will be this run test montage when I press H. And since the root motion is not enabled, that way I'll be able to move and try to play this animation as I'm moving. So this one right here. And you can see I'm staying in place. But I can still move, and I can blend that animation, try to play it, and it's playing, but it's the running animation same as I have, so you can just see it on my right arm that it's not moving when I'm playing it. But if you enable root motion on the animation itself, not on the montage, because montage just inherits it. So in this run test, I'm going to enable root motion. Now the player, if I press H, will stop on a place, and it's rooted basically. And the reason it's rooted is because when you enable root motion, it's only moving with the animation root, and if the animation root doesn't actually move, then your character won't move. But let's say you want to have an animation that charges someone, like you press it and you're charging forward, and you want to have a root motion enabled so you can't do any other animations, then you would have to go to animation itself. So in the game we do have this root motion right here. So we select the root, and you can see it's at the same place the whole animation, so it doesn't move, but we want to charge forward. So instead of just root, we can select this global, which is selects the body and everything else that it needs. A camera as well will move with it. And then on this last bit, I'm going to move it all the way here, and then that will key it in for me. And now if I run, it doesn't move. As you can see, this is the case when it's jumping, and that is because on my curves, again, I'm just jumping to the last position, so I'm going to edit, delete all of them. and then just do smooth animation. There we go. And now it's charging forward. So now it has root that moves. So when we export it, right click, big animation sequence, third person animations, new test run. Oh, this one I will call charge, new charge, and export it. Then create a montage from it, create any montage, and in the charge I'm going to enable root motion, so my character can't move with the regular animations or anything else. And here I'm going to play it, new charge montage, compile and save. And now when I press H, I'm not holding any keys. I'm suddenly charging forward. But while I'm doing it, I can't press any arrows or keys or anything on the left arrow or right arrow. I can't, because I do have root motions enabled. So this will be very useful for skills. And in general, root motion is what you want to have enabled while you're doing the animations. And we can also edit existing animations to, for example, if we find the asset that we like when you're swinging the hammer or sword or any two-handed weapon, you want to edit the root that you will move slightly forward, so you're always catching up to the enemies. That's basically how all the modern games are set up, that you have a little bit of root motion. And now, as I said, I want to add sprinting to our character. So I have included in the description the animation you can download. It's this sprint forward. Just import it to your engine, and don't forget to change the skeleton when you're importing it to SK Mannequin. That is the one we're using for MetaHumans. And then this is what it looks like. And the way we're going to add it to our character is we will search for blend space, which is this blend space walk and run. And as you can see here, if you hold control and changing the speeds, this is when our character speed is 230. It is walking, which at the moment we're not doing in the game because we're always running. But when it's like 500, it will run, which is, I think, our default value for our character. But we also want to sprint because we have a button when we hold shift that we're sprinting. So we can here change the speed, horizontal axis, to be maximum value of, I think 800 is what we have set up for sprinting. So do 800, and then we can just search for sprint and drag it out here and add it to the end. So now when the character speed is 800, it will be sprinting. So now we can test it out. It won't be perfect. Now when I start sprinting, you can see there is a couple of seconds that it takes for animation to blend, and it seems to be starting with the wrong foot. But then after it starts sprinting, it actually looks quite nice. But what we want to do is we want to change it so there is not that 1 second of changing the animation, which looks horrible. And for that, at the moment, these animations here, default ones in Unreal, have IK foot setup, so foot placement basically, and it's checking which foot is down, and then once you change this blend space, it will go to the new one based on the which foot is down. So we need to do the same thing for our animation, for our sprint. So just find run, run forward, and you can see here they got the tags based on which you can tell which foot is down. So if you go to this one, the left foot is down. If you go to this one, right foot is down. And we can just select all of them, right click and copy, and then we can go to our sprint, open it, and we will right click here, up here, and let's do paste at original time, for example, just as long as you paste them. And then we need to figure out when is our foot down. So let me check actually one more time if the first one is set up as well. In the run, run. I'll open it in a new window. No, okay, so the first one is not set up, so we'll just do from the second foot down. So here you can see we do have a right foot down, not the left one, so we need to get the right one added here. Then here, when the foot touches the ground, is the left one. Here it touches the ground, it's the right one. And here it's the left one again. We don't need these extra ones because we're sprinting, so we're touching the ground less. Now we can save it, and everything else is done automatically for us. So if I now sprint, it goes straight away to sprinting. And it seems to be actually looking quite nice. Perfect. And that is pretty much all I wanted to cover. So now we know how to create animations, edit the existing ones, and also sprint. And you know about the route. And there is just one bug that I want to fix from the Quickslots that I have found out that we have just today. And that is when you pick up some items. Don't mind my new letters or anything. I have been trying to edit my UI. So when you press C on a keyboard, I drink 2 potions instead of 1. And the reason is that when we set it in the inventory and then remove those quick slots, they still stay in the memory, and you're actually using those ones and also the ones that you have on screen. So to prevent that, we have to just go to player. There is a function close open widget. Open it up, and in the end we will just empty this reference, which is widget to close. So search for this widget to close, just set it to empty one, and after collect garbage. That way it will remove all the old quick slots from memory and it won't happen again. And that is all. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.